How you doing? Everyone good? Nice. I'm going to set the timer here because I can babble. Let me just say, my dad would kill me if he knew I didn't set a timer up here. If I go over, feel free to stop me. Thank you very much for that great introduction, by the way. I really appreciate it. I hope I can motivate, inspire you, and of course, I want to thank you as well, because somebody that suffers from chronic fecal incontinence, nurses, boy, I've had a great relationship with them over the years, let me tell you, especially in the early years. And just by chance, I had a press release come to my inbox, and I just want to read you. So it's a new survey that just came out, and it's a survey asking Canadians to express their how much they admire certain professions here in Canada. And I don't think you'll be surprised to find out what the number one profession was on that list. At 92%, it was nurses. 92. Pretty amazing. I'm happy to say my profession came in not too bad. We made the top 15, so on-air personalities were about 76%. Probably deserved to be lower than that. Nurses, though, I'm surprised we weren't closer to the 99, 100%. But again, thank you all for the work that you do. I know that you're on the front lines, and you don't even have to hear from people like myself who perhaps have something physical that's a challenge for them. You know with that physical challenge comes a mental challenge. And we don't have to share that with you. You can see it in our eyes. You can see it with perhaps the shame or embarrassment that we may have because of that problem. And I can't tell you enough. You can ask my parents, I loved going to the hospital. When I was young, the treatment was just amazing. So my brother's like, oh, you got to go again. Are you kidding? There's like ice cream and Jell-O and these beautiful women. It doesn't get any better. I'm like 9 years old and I'm lying in a bed and people are serving me. It was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I'll just refer to my notes every now and then because sometimes I go off track and I want to try to stay on track. So, as mentioned, I have chronic fecal incontinence. So I was born which is called a high imperforate anus. I don't think I have to explain what that is to any of you. This is probably the safest crowd I've ever talked in front of. By the way, where's the washroom? In case... Oh, out here? Okay. Yeah, so that certainly presented many challenges for myself. In the beginning, it was more of a challenge for my parents, because you can imagine being born and the doctors immediately saying, because it was immediately obvious. So I was born without the opening. I was born without a sphincter muscle. So this is what they described to my parents at birth, and my mom and dad are going, what? How was that possible? What happened? What did we do? And my poor mom, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. She's like, I promise. She would tell me years later. But they had a lot of challenges because, as many of you probably heard through this conference, certainly the medical field and treatment has changed a great deal. So I had a pull through. They had to make the actual anus opening. I always joke with my friends, listen, doctors made me an asshole. I'm not responsible. So I put it on them. So if you have any problems, just blame the medical field. So, as I said, my parents went through a lot. My mom was really responsible for looking after, so I had a colostomy for probably the first 6 to 8 months. My mom was responsible for looking after that, making sure it was clean, making sure the opening was fine. We had some difficulties, as my mom would tell me years and years later. At one point, one of the tubes slipped back in. So the two tubes came out. I don't know what it's like today because I don't have one anymore, but the two tubes came out and then, they had the piece on top and a bag. So one of the tubes slipped under the skin. So my mom, of course, called the doctor in a panic, called the hospital. I don't know who she got a hold of. Probably not the right person, but they said, don't worry, the other tube will kick in. I think you can kind of figure out where I'm going here. So my mom, okay, fine. And then literally hours later, I was throwing up feces because it was under my skin. It was going into my body. I had an infection. We went to emergency. We would have a few emergency visits over the years. None of them that I remember, so I'm certainly glad that I had great parents. I had, by the way, an amazing childhood, regardless of some of the challenges I'll talk to you about in just a few minutes. I'm an emotional guy too, so if I tear up, don't worry. I'll get back on track and start smiling again. I had quite a few challenges growing up, but the support system was amazing. In particular, my mom and dad, my brother, my sister, my stepsisters, my stepmother. I can't say enough about them. My extended family as well, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles. My grandparents actually came to visit me when I was still in hospital very young, and on the flight home, my granny turned to my grandfather and said, "I don't think we're going to see him again." I had lost so much weight, the infection, you look at the baby pictures, I look like hell. I have some great pictures of myself with some of our best friends growing up, and I'll tell you a little bit about their support later on, but it's, fat baby, fat baby, fat baby, whoop, there I was. It's just this little thing. So I didn't really know I had any kind of problem. I wasn't treated as though I had a problem. I used to call it my medical problem, actually. And then years later, my parents told me to stop calling it a problem because it's not my problem. You have a medical issue, you're incontinent. A problem always sounds like it's your fault. It's no fault of my own that I was born with it. So years later, I'd go to kindergarten, and then I had my first accident at kindergarten, where literally the diaper filled up so much that it started running down my leg. The other students, they obviously recognized something was happening, but you're still in kindergarten, so they're just like, "Hey, look at Derek's pooping himself." I do that at home, but not in public places. Look at this guy. So, although I was certainly embarrassed, it didn't really affect me too much. I'm sure they were mostly grossed out more than anything. But then as I progressed into elementary school, things changed quite dramatically. And you can't hide things like that. I wore diapers till I was 12 years old. We always tried new different things. Boy, I wore my mom's maxi pads for a while. Oh my God. Imagine pulling that out of your pocket. It falls in the gym. "Hey, Derek said, just holding it for my mom." I must have forgotten after groceries to leave that. So sometimes it became obvious, other obvious things which some of them were really cool. So I had my own key to the staff bathroom, which it was the golden key to the staff bathroom. But of course the other kids said, "No, what are you doing going into the staff?" "Oh, nothing, just Mrs. Belmonte told me I should check things out. I'm just cleaning it for her." I don't know. I made up stuff all the time. I became to have a very creative mind, quite an imagination. Also, when I dressed for gym class, I didn't dress in front of the other boys. I couldn't. I'm wearing a diaper. I'm 10 years old. What are they going to say? So I always changed in the stall. So questions abound about that. And then, of course, when I had an accident in those elementary years, it was devastating. Devastating psychologically, because now my entire day was consumed inside this head, and all I could think about is, okay, what if it happens? What am I going to do? Where's my escape route? I could get out of that school faster than any kid on the planet, I guarantee you. I knew exactly where washrooms were and so forth. So those were difficult times, being beat up in the schoolyard, walking home from school, thrown down the creek. I was a tough little kid. Although I was probably the smallest kid in school, I was pretty tough. I was quite competitive, which probably wasn't the right thing to have, because when you're competitive and you have that, you get into that defensive mechanism. I probably caused some of the physical abuse that I took because I wouldn't back down. I didn't tell my parents that because I was worried that I would upset them if I told them I was engaging in some of this physical abuse. But yeah, my mom was great though. So my mom's role really was to, if something happened to me at school, she would come to school, kick ass, and take names. She was amazing. Excuse me. And my mom would come to the school. I'd have to explain to her what happened. I'd have to tell her what kids it was. She went to the vice principal, to the principal. She went to my teacher. She'd give the names. They'd be taken aside. They'd be spoken to. A lot of parents might not have done that strategy. There's also the strategy of, perhaps that would get me in more trouble at school, but my mom wanted to make sure that they were made accountable. And I think that's part of the problem with bullying. I've talked about bullying with young people, and oftentimes a lot of the attention is on the victim of bullying. And the situation isn't my problem. The problem is the bully in this situation. And so they need the help. And I honestly believe they needed help because there's no understanding. These kids live by the moment. They don't think ahead, and they often don't reflect on what's happened in the past. So my mom played that role, and she played it very efficiently. And, spoke to parents in the neighborhood as well. And I'll give this to some of the parents out there. They spoke to their children as well and tried to explain to them what the problem was. Unfortunately, sometimes that didn't do the trick. My dad had a different role. My dad's role was the guy that I called if I had an accident at school. And it was just as important. My dad was always available no matter what situation. He had a pretty high-profile job in Ottawa. So my dad was a chartered accountant. He was a senior partner at an accounting firm with his name on it, Ginsberg, Glusman, Fage, and Levitz. And I would call him, and he could be in the middle of a meeting with a multi-million-dollar client, and he'd drop everything. He'd apologize to the client. I have a family emergency. I have to go. And when I have an accident, I always describe it so that people understand it, especially young people when I've spoken to them. You say accident, they don't know what you mean. Oh, you pooped your pants? Big deal. No, like I've got diarrhea running down my legs, and I'm at school, and I have no cell phone. I have change in my pocket to use the payphone at that time. I would tuck my pants into my socks so it wouldn't come out. And I would become a superhero. That's how I always described it, because, as I said, I always had these constant conversations internally. And I become this superhero who would, all of a sudden, I have to become the spy, put on the cloak of invisibility, and make my way to the nearest washroom. Making sure I was always, sliding along the wall. And I call up my dad, and we had the code word, Dad, I've had an accident. My dad would jump in his car. He would always have garbage bags in the trunk of the car. And then, of course, getting out of the school again, had my route planned out so I knew exactly how to get it. But you run into people along the way. Diarrhea smells pretty bad. It's kind of high. Did you fart? Yeah. That's correct. Yeah, just got a doctor's appointment. And I actually had the benefit of I have quite a few scars on my belly from pull-through. So, of course, as a kid, you make up grandiose stories about why you have so many scars. I had the colostomy scar. I had my appendix out, so I had that. So I've got a scar about this big running from here to here. And then I've got the small colostomy, and I've got where I had my appendix out. So I could always at least tell the boys, because they see me in gym class, you take off your T-shirt, and then I'd make up a story. So I had doctor's appointments all the time for whatever ailment I had made up. Maybe it was a car accident or a multiple stabbing, You make up stuff like that. But sometimes I got caught. I remember I was in private school for 2 years. I had a major accident. Oh, my goodness. It was just horrible. There was nothing to do to hide. I called my dad right away. He shows up. It's fall. So I'm in the parking lot. It's a fairly small parking lot, but there's some beautiful trees, and the leaves have fallen, and so I get down, and I pile the leaves on top of me, and I just sit there, and I wait for my dad. And then some of my friends come out, and I'm sitting in leaves, and they're like, hey, how are you? What the hell are you doing? Like, just hanging out. I start playing with the leaves. It's fall. I love this stuff. Come on, don't you guys jump in the leaves at home? So here I am, like, oh, God, Dad, get here, Trying to get the dirt up to get rid of the smell. Here I go. So my dad shows up, and my dad was perfect, right? Because my dad's so cool and calm. He just starts talking, and, hey, kids, how's school going? And all of a sudden diverts everyone's attention. No, come on over here, guys. And then I'd, sort of dive through the window of the car into a garbage bag waiting for me. Holes cut out for the head and the arms and the legs. And then And then my dad would drive me home, and it was great because my dad didn't say much on the way home. You know, he knew I needed to have my own time to reflect on what happened, to sort of take it all in. And his, you know, anxiety, panic attacks, oh my goodness, suffered a lot of panic attacks. I'll tell you a story in just a few minutes about one. And he would just say, you know, everything's okay, take me home. I'd shower. I'd wash by hand all of my clothes while I was in the shower and then bring it down to the laundry room. And I don't know, I guess I was really fortunate at a young age to kind of accept that, you know, it's okay, that's one. I always explain it to this, in this manner, that it's one incident in a long life. And, you know, this didn't happen on a weekly basis, thankfully. So, you know, once that one incident was done, and sure, I had my cry, and I was upset, but once those clothes were down in the laundry, boom, I was back outside. Like, I'm playing with my friends, like, I mean, it's done, right? And I think that's the mentality, no matter, and I'm sure everyone in this room has suffered from something in life. And it's really hard to try to get into that mentality of just forgetting that it ever happened. But it's easier to do than you think. Our minds are so incredibly powerful. We have so much control over our thoughts than we give ourselves credit for. The human mind is an amazing thing, and I know we don't use as much of it as we should. Science always talks about it. But what we do have available to us, we make choices. Every single feeling and emotion that we have is a choice. And I can choose in that moment to continue being upset and letting it ruin my day, perhaps my week and my weekend. I chose not to. And I think that part of the toughness and the competitiveness that I had was part of that. One of the other challenges I had was the fact that I have a very sensitive stomach. So, although not diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, my family doctor pretty much says, you probably have it. So sugar, fried foods, alcohol, and incontinence don't mix for me whatsoever. And so what have I done over time? Well, when I was a kid, I ate sugar because I didn't want to be different. I always thought to myself, I'm already different, so I don't want to be different again. So let me tell you, boy, did I indulge. We went out to Halloween. I had the biggest pillowcase of any kid. Walk down door to door and then indulge. And my parents, to their credit, they let me suffer my indulgence. They did. They're like, listen, you want to go out and eat candy? They warned me what was going to happen. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's like, it's okay. I'll just eat it at home. I'll make sure I'm not, but unfortunately I didn't realize that the body doesn't necessarily work that way. You don't necessarily eat like a dozen donuts and then, you know, you flush out. It's like you eat a dozen, oh, I'm fine. Like, I'd be like, Dad, I ate a dozen donuts, I feel great. 24 hours later, the dozen donuts starts to affect you, and then you realize the mistake that you made. But again, just one incident in a long life, so I'll try candy again down the road. Why not? The other real problem I had with those internal conversations all the time was I was really a terrible student, an absolutely awful student. I sat in class thinking so much. I can't tell you how often I just, okay, what if something happened, if my stomach grumbled, immediately anything else happening in the room, I didn't care who was talking and what the subject was, I was gone. I was gone for like minutes, hours at a time just thinking about it. Plus, having that internal thought also, you know, had me using my imagination so often. So, you know, you see a squirrel in the yard, I just, oh, there's a squirrel in the yard. I had the internal talk, and I swear I probably missed 50% of what the teachers were saying. So in elementary school, I took French immersion for the first 5 years, and my parents, after a while, just with all the other distractions, English being our first language at home, they just said, okay, we're check on the French immersion, we're giving up on that. Which is a shame, because here I am in Montreal now. But I am hosting an English show. But still, the French is starting to come back a little bit. I'm trying to practice as much as I can. My parents also felt I had ADD, and because of the ADD, they had to find things for me to do. So along with this creative imagination, ADD thrown into mix, schooling was just out the window for me. And I'll get to high school in just a little bit. Elementary school was pretty bad, but high school was a real challenge for me. An interesting thing, by the way, a doctor. So I hosted a show in Ottawa for many years called Daytime Ottawa. I produced it for the last 2 years, but I hosted the show for 11 years. We had a doctor on the show one time, and what he said really stood out. And of course, this is his opinion, and I really respected the opinion. Obviously, people have different levels of ADD and ADHD, but what he said was, kids with an abundance of energy, when you're young, people try to find ways to curb your energy, right? They want you to stop being distracted and try to rein in that energy by many different means. Perhaps it even goes so far as you need to be medicated. And what he said is we should be celebrating that energy and that ADD and that ADHD with those kids as a gift, and tell them that you have a gift. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to find a way for you to focus and use your gift. That was the important thing that he told to all of his patients. So whenever he had parents come and tell him about the fact that, my child's been diagnosed with ADD, he says, great, okay, let's celebrate it and let's find something for this child to focus on. So what do they like? Are they watching sports on TV? Do they love the arts? Do they sing? Is there theater in their lives? Do they love musicals? Let's find something, and that will be our starting point. The interesting thing about when you get older, like myself and 46, and still have an abundance of energy. By the way, I was up at 3 a.m. this morning, and this is the way I do my entire day. Everyone always says, do you ever come down at all? And no, not until I get home. And then I can relax. But I like to take advantage of each day that I have. So he said, the doctor also said to me, it's interesting when you're older, people see that you have this energy and they go, oh my God, where do you get your energy? I would love to have your energy. When we're young, oh my God, okay, we have to suppress this energy. This kid is out of control. But if you have it as an adult, we all look at it and respect it and go, geez, I have to find a way. What is your secret to having that much energy? Now, I'm not saying go out and try to get some ADD, everybody, okay? That's certainly that. But again, don't suppress it. Take advantage of it. So how did my parents help me in that situation? How did they help me harness my energy and my competitiveness? Because I was very competitive. Sports. So I was always outside. In our neighborhood, I lived in Arlington Woods and Nepean in Ottawa. And in our neighborhood, everybody was outside all the time. We shared front lawns, back lawns. We had a creek nearby. My parents never saw my brother, my sister, and I. We were gone. All day, every day. I came home from school, I left. Started to get dark, I came home and I ate. On the way to and from school, my poor brother, oh my God. So my brother and I went to the same elementary school, and we lived within walking distance. So of course we would come home for lunch. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. This is great. We come home for lunch, it's prepared. So my brother would walk me to and from school because, he's my big brother. He wants to protect me. But he would get so frustrated because this is me walking home from school, and I just, butterfly. Oh my, Rod, do you see the ant? Look at these ants. Look at these ants. Look at the flower. There's a bee. That was my whole. So my brother would be home 20 minutes before I got home. I would roll in. He's already watching Spider-Man. I'd have to get him to catch me up on Spider-Man. I'd watch a little bit of the Flintstones. And my mom was just so frustrated. Walk with your brother. This is the guy I told you you're supposed to watch. He's your protector. Anyway, I couldn't do it. I was, so sports. I was really creative. I made up storylines all the time. As I said, I always wanted to be a superhero. I was a soldier. On my way home, I was a soldier. I was a superhero. I was a super spy. I would do roles. like walking through the field, and all of a sudden I'd be down and crawling on my elbows. People must have thought I was nuts. But I was doing things to stay active, but getting involved in sports was an absolute game changer for me. Again, let's focus this person's energy. So I was the smallest kid in almost every level of sport imaginable. I didn't have a growth spurt till I was about 17 years old. This is a true story. I was at camp. I was at summer camp as a counselor. I was shorter than my brother and my dad by quite a bit. I grew 6 inches over the summer. I came home and I was looking down at my dad and my brother. It was the best feeling I have ever had in my life. It was amazing because I used to ask my dad all the time, am I going to grow? Am I going to grow? Bugged my parents all the time. So small, am I going to grow? Am I going to grow? So finally I had it. I should say I had some anger issues as well. And that's, I think, another reason why my parents wanted to find something to focus the energy. And I'm sure the anger issues came from being bullied, and you don't want to back down. There's a sense of pride that we all have. When we're pushed, we want to push back all the time. I'm happy to say my anger issues are done now. I'm a very happy-go-lucky. You can ask Pierre, my cameraman back here. I'm the happiest guy walking. I'm like the annoying morning guy. All right? You work in an office, which I did. I worked at my dad's accounting firm for 18 years. Like, I'm the guy that comes, hey, good morning. How are you? Hey, how you doing? Everyone's like, can just sit down for a few minutes, have a coffee. Don't have a coffee. Sorry, no, don't have a coffee. But I don't know. I'm the type of person, I wake up in the morning and I'm ready to go. Like, I don't want to waste any time. I want to get to work and start having fun. And you can imagine, I'm hosting a television show. Who wouldn't be grateful for doing a job like that each and every morning? I mean, I put in a lot of work. I arrive at 4 in the morning. I don't leave usually till noon or 1 in the afternoon. I help book guests. I'm not just a talking head like I know many of us think. I certainly thought that before I started doing TV, but a lot of work behind the scenes. So back to sports. Nobody worked harder than me. And then when I decided to get into sports, I wasn't going to do one sport. I signed up for every sport. Honestly, I did basketball, I did soccer, I did football, I did rugby, I played baseball, I did track and field. I signed up for everything at school. My parents didn't have to do activities outside of school for me, like we all try to plan now for our kids these days. They didn't have to plan anything. Because I would come home and tell my parents everything. My mom's like, how can you possibly sign up? Aren't they happening at the same time? I said, that's fine, Mom. I have it scheduled. I got track and field till 3:30, so I got 2:30 to 3:30 track and field, and then football starts, so I'm good. My mom's like, okay, that's what you want to do. That's what I did. I signed up for sports. I played competitive squash for some time. My dad got my brother and I into squash, which was a fantastic sport. I beat the number 3 junior in Canada at one time. He was one of my good friends at the time, Ryan Gunn. He was number 3, 14 and under. I was 15. Okay, it's only a year. All right. And then he challenged me for the rest of our life to play another squash game, and I refused. That's how competitive I was, because I was like, no, I'm going to tell people I beat the number 3 in Canada. That's it. That's the end of my story. I'm not going to say, oh, and then we had a rematch and I lost 10 in a row. That's not a good story, right? Sports was a big turning point. There was quite a few of them throughout my life. I mentioned earlier the great support I had, but the next thing that I craved is I wanted a best friend. I didn't have that best friend for a long time. I had a family, the Goodwins, who were childhood friends of actually my mom and dad, and they had 3 boys, as a matter of fact. And their youngest was born the same year as my sister. Their middle child was born the same year as me. Their eldest was born the same year as my brother. We were inseparable, but we were family more than we were, friends. It was Uncle Eric and Auntie Nancy. I always called them, they were angels. I love the outdoors. Probably because the smell could dissipate no matter where I was. Like, the more outdoors I was, the more comfortable I felt. Because even if I was playing with friends and I had an accident, and not a major one, it's kind of constantly flowing, I'll be honest. So when you're in that environment, when you're in an enclosed area, it gets that anxiety and that panic, it eats you up. So anytime I could be outside, I'm grateful that I had this medical problem. That's what I've always told people, because it's shaped who I am, and it created the world that I got to live in, which was in a world of creativity, imagination, loving the outdoors. My wife and I own a cottage we got 4 years ago. Oh my God. I can't tell you enough. Anyway, getting back to the good ones. They had a great cottage on the big Rito system. It was open door policy. Every single weekend we could come up whenever we wanted. We had our own rooms to share with the boys. My parents had their own bedroom there. It was fantastic. And they treated me like any other person. They never asked me about my incontinence. They never said, hey, what's that smell? They were paradise on earth for me. I went there all the time. After my parents got divorced and that relationship split, unfortunately, I was devastated. My parents got divorced when I was 12. First of all, losing my mom, and her and I were attached by the umbilical cord still. And when they got divorced, it killed me. And because that Goodwin relationship was gone, I lost my little piece of heaven here on earth. And that was tough. But getting back to having the best friend, I just was dying I didn't have a best friend. It was grade 5. Grade 5 ended, and I would say it every year. Grade 5 ended, now I still don't have a best friend. It's 5 years now in school that I've been looking for this person, and I haven't found them yet. And then in grade 6, I know this is going to sound like a movie, how we met, but this is a true story, and this guy's the greatest guy. So I was late for class. I'm running down the hallway. I turn the corner, bam! I run into somebody. Books flying everywhere. And I run into this guy, Gary, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go again, you know. I'm in a new school. By the way, I changed schools so often, it was like a fresh start for me. I always told my parents, I don't like school. I don't like the school anymore. I don't like these teachers. They're picking on me too much. I think my count, I went to 9 schools by the time I was finished high school. So I ran into this guy. We're both on the ground. Books are everywhere. And I just stared at him. Like, okay, what's going to happen? He starts laughing. He starts laughing. And so I start laughing. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's laughing. He's not going to kick the you-know-what out of me. I can't believe it. So he starts laughing. And all of a sudden, we start, talking. He's like, are you okay? We pick up the books. He's talking to me. I'm like, is this how normal kids communicate when something like this happens? And we would become friends for life from that moment on. Gary's moved to Toronto. I've moved to Montreal. But still that person I can reconnect with. And there was something about Gary that was really special. The way he talked about his family. Like his mom and his dad, his grandmother lived with them. And he just glowingly talked about his family. And then I would find out that his father suffered from Crohn's and colitis. So I think that connection with Gary and his father, and having seen what his father did, so he felt sympathy. He had empathy for me. And, all of a sudden I had a friend that I could go for a sleepover because they understood. I got to sit down and share with this kid, grade 6 kid, what my medical problem. First person outside my family I ever told about my medical problem. It was the most beautiful moment in my life. Just having this young boy sitting across from you and you explain in detail. And I told him in detail. I'm like, Gary, we'll go to the movies and I'll shit myself and we're going to have to leave, dude. Like, I got to go, right? And Gary's like, yeah, okay, that's no problem. And it happened. There was a movie theater. It was a bit of a walk from my house, but we went to the movie theater, and Gary, always calm. I'd lean over, buddy, I've had an accident. He's like, yeah, that's fine. You get up first, and I'll walk behind you so no one can see. He followed me into the bathroom, made sure I got into the stall. I'm trying to get cleaned up. There he is asking me questions. Do you want me to go home and get a change of clothes? What do you want to do? Just a game changer. Totally changed my life to find out that somebody that age could actually have sympathy for someone with that problem. And then in high school, I'll tell you how that affected me moving into high school. in just a few minutes. Let me just go through here. So as I moved into my high school years, I began sort of overcoming the mental challenges more and more. I started forgetting about, instead of having an internal discussion with myself about, the embarrassment and what am I going to do and how am I going to get out of situations and this internal struggle that I had, I wondered, what if I just tell people? Like I told Gary, so now I'm in, grade 10. These are more mature young people. What if I just start telling people? Now I didn't randomly stop people in the hallway. Hey, what's your name? Hey, have you heard of chronic fecal incontinence? Well, come here. Let's walk with me. Let me tell you. I started getting more friends, and I was able to manage the incontinence a little bit better. I actually stopped wearing diapers as I moved into high school, and I just started using toilet paper because I was like, why don't I just wrap it into a pad and create a pad, put it in my underwear, and there's my protection. It's available everywhere. Because, walking around with a satchel in high school full of diapers doesn't feel that cool. Not that anyone knows what it is, but you never know, right? Somebody, hey, can I borrow a pen, open up your satchel of diapers? It's not something I was interested in sharing. So that's what I started. That's what I use to this day, by the way. I'm still waiting for a diaper sponsor, by the way, if you know anyone. I take so much Imodium, by the way, which I'm sure you all will frown at. I'm not sure I should be taking them like they're Smarties. I should probably have shares in Imodium. I should talk to my agent about that now that I think about it. I could be like the face of Imodium. That's not a bad idea. I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget that. So I continued to get the support from Gary, my family, but sports started to sort of fall by the wayside. As I said, I didn't have my growth spurt until 17. I was a really skinny kid. My metabolism was incredibly fast. It seemed what I eat just left. Eat, gone. Eat, gone. I didn't put on any muscle. So then I was in a position where now I'm intimidated by sports, right? I'm going to join the football team. And all of a sudden I'm in high school. I'm like, holy jeez, you're the quarterback. I thought you were the offensive lineman. Shit, I'm not joining the football team. And so as I started to move away from sports, my parents still had the concern, where are you going to focus your energy? Because my energy didn't change. I still had the same amount of energy. And I remembered that when I was a bit younger, in those elementary school years, my parents at one time sent me to a summer camp, a theater and drama summer camp. And I remember how much I loved it. So I'm like, hey, maybe that's the new focus. So I went home and I said to my parents, hey, maybe drama. Remember when you and they were like, yes, sign up for drama. So, just like sports, I didn't just sign up for one program. So, oh, my poor brother. He was in audiovisual. My brother was the geek of the family. I was like the black sheep. He went to university. I dropped out of high school 3 times. That's true. But I'll tell you, there's a good ending here. Don't worry. So I signed up for the drama class. I signed up for the improv team. I signed up for the assembly committee. I signed up for the after-school drama program. And boom, okay, I've got my new focus. I'm going to do theater and drama. It was amazing. I was writing plays. We would have variety shows at this high school I was going to, Fisher Park. I wrote like British comedies. I wrote like comedic commercials that we would put through. So whenever we'd have a variety show, instead of just, having the guys moving all of the stuff, we would do a commercial out front to keep everyone's attention, not focused on stage. So I wrote everything. And the teacher's like, okay, there are other people involved in the variety show. You don't have to write every single piece. Like, no, take what you want, and then I'll keep the rest for another time. Maybe I'll catch up to it at some point. So yeah, I had such a great time. It was amazing being part of that. I could use my imagination constantly in that motion, and again, I think we lose that imagination as we get older because we become responsible adults, right? I always say to people, I think it's irresponsible to lose the imagination and to have fun with what we can do and make things in life really fun moments. Even the most mundane things can be a lot of fun if you choose for it to be fun. When I went to camp, that was another turning point. I went to summer camp. My brother and sister had gone to summer camp for 2 years before I did. There was no way it was going to happen. Then they came back home and they said, oh my God, we did rappelling and windsurfing and sailing and kayaking and canoeing. And I was like, oh man, that just sounds like me. What is my geeky brother doing all that stuff and I'm not there during the summer? So my parents said, okay, you know what, let's go to the camp and we'll talk to the owner of the camp and just explain, the issue. I mean, what's the big deal? What is he going to say? So we went. And again, it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell somebody else, and what are they going to think? Just days and days of thinking like that. And then we get there, and Mike Southam was his name, from Southam newspapers. He and his brother bought this camp. This was his passion. And my mom and dad sit down with him, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. So put some spare clothes, and he can keep it in the office. He can keep it in I have a house on the grounds if he wants to keep it there. If he has, personal hygiene things, sure, of course he can come to camp. Oh my God. As I said, summer camp, can you imagine a person like me? I signed up I tried every single thing known to mankind. My schedule, so everybody would pick their favorites, right? Like, oh, look at Bill's got, back-to-back kayaking in the morning, back-to-back canoeing in the afternoon. I was archery, drama, canoeing, kayaking, sailing, swimming. Next day, I would change them all up in reverse order and do something different. That was an incredible experience. Let me just so I think I've come a long way with controlling my thoughts. I stopped having anxiety. I stopped having panic attacks. I mentioned I had a major one. I was at my dad's office, and I was actually, at the time I was a smoker. I've quit smoking, by the way, cold turkey, 6 years. I was another anxiety, like, hey, these cool guys are smoking. I have incontinence, maybe I'll be cool and incontinent. What the hell? These guys look cool. And plus, this helps with the smell. Yeah, guys. I got it, man. Yeah. I know, you're standing outside. Why do you keep doing this? What do you mean? Doing what? I don't know. So my panic attack was, and it wasn't even me. This is another reason why I'm grateful for having the medical issue. I almost caught myself. Because I became a more emotional person. I sympathized with people. So when people told me their problems, I really took it to heart. I was like, okay, I get it. I put myself in their position. So my friend Irma and I were having a smoke in the stairwell. This is when you can actually smoke in buildings. Horrible idea. So we go to the back stairwell and we're smoking, and she's telling me about her divorce. And, it's a really emotional moment. She's very upset. And it's almost like she jumped into my body. And I'm like, yes, I know. I think I'm getting divorced too. I feel it. Yeah, maybe I should get divorced too. I don't know. And my heart rate started going up. I stopped feeling my fingertips. I was sweating. And I turned to Irma. I don't know. I think I'm having a stroke. And she's like, oh my God, you're white. I'm like, oh my God, we got to go see my dad. So we run to my dad's office. My dad's like having a client meeting. Dad, I need to see you. He's like, I was Ricky then. I grew up, everyone called me Ricky. He's like, Ricky, as you can see, I'm with a client. I'm like, Dad, no, emergency. I've had an accident. I had to say it, right? I just got to get this guy out of here. I've had an accident, Dad. He's like, I don't think so. Anyway. He goes out, so I say, and he's like, what's wrong? You look terrible. I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And he goes, oh my God. So he feels my heart rate. My heart rate is just going insane. And he's like, I think you are having a heart attack. I'm like, great, Dad. It's not what you're supposed to be the calming person here. So he ran red lights all the way to the hospital. We get to the hospital, they bring me in, I'm having a heart attack, my dad's freaking out, my son's having a heart attack, he's only 25 years old, you gotta see someone, So they bring me in right away because we're freaking out. And the doctor comes over and he, looks at me and takes the stethoscope and, yeah, you're having a panic attack. Right away, the diagnosis was immediate. I'm like, no, you've got to put me in a machine or something. He's like, no, trust me, you're having a panic attack, just relax. So he's like, breathe. So I start breathing, everything. Oh, okay, take this pill. I took the pill, gave me a prescription for the pills. I hate pills. So I made it my mission. I am not going to take one of these pills in the bottle. I hate pills. I don't like treating things with pills. I want to be responsible for fixing it myself. Maybe not a good idea in all situations, but I thought in this situation it was a good idea. So I threw out the bottle of pills and I studied meditation. I'm going to learn how to meditate. I bought the CDs. I bought music that people recommended for meditation. I never had a major panic attack like that again in my life. Again, it's the control. Thank you. It's just the ability to control your mind and the ability to understand what's happening. In high school, my other issue was intimacy. Now I'm in the age of, okay, girls. What the hell am I going to do about girls? Because they're attractive beings, And I thought, first of all, there was no way I was ever going to tell a girl about my incontinence. No way. They would find it disgusting. I could not, that is one thing I could not get over. Talking about trying to have control of your thoughts and minds and choices, I could not get over that. I would get into a relationship with a girl. We would start to come to the moment of intimacy, and a few things would happen. One, I would just distance myself from them right away. Oh, we're getting intimate. Okay. Start doing the cold shoulder. I would break it off or just stop talking altogether, and they would just break up with me. And it was upsetting, but I was so stubborn that I could not tell them. And it was lonely. All my friends are starting to go out with girls and they're going on dates, and I felt horrible. But I couldn't get over it. It wasn't until years and years later that I felt comfortable, and I'm divorced and remarried. My first wife, I actually told her on our first date. Told her everything. I'd had it. I don't know why it was her in particular, but it was just in the moment. We were at a bar having a great time, and I just went, this is it. Okay, I like this girl, this is it, I'm doing it. And I told her, and she just went, oh, okay. Anyway, and we just kept the conversation. I was floored. I had to stop her. What do you mean, anyway? I just told you I shit myself. Like a lot. I don't think you're getting this. No, I get what you're saying. And it was perfect timing. We were quite young. I proposed to her 3 months after we met. She said yes. Got married a year and a half later. Bought our first house. Everything happened really, really quickly. I think we needed each other at that time. The interesting part is we didn't know each other. And you can't start a relationship expecting, well, I'll just get to know you during marriage. Don't do it. It doesn't work. We're actually quite good friends. We're friendly. We have a daughter together. I have a beautiful daughter, 11 years old, Chloe. But yeah, we needed each other at that time. She had gone through a difficult, abusive relationship. I had these anxiety issues. I wanted to love, and I wanted to be loved. So we met each other at the right time. I'm happy to say, happily remarried. Again, my wife Monica and I, we met 6 years ago, got married 2.5 years ago. She has a 16-year-old stepson. I have an 11-year-old daughter. They get along famously, and I did the same thing. I said to myself, okay, it worked with Nancy, the first wife, on the first date. I'm going to tell Monica on the first date. And I did. And it was the same reaction. It was incredible. So, yes, I mentioned I'd get back to high school. Dropped out 3 times. Actually moved to Kingston at one time. It's one of the most devastating moments of my life. It's the first time I've ever seen my dad cry. He packed up my things, even my bed. I had a captain's bed, put it in the back of our big green van, and he drove me to Kingston. We dropped off all the stuff. We went for lunch, and my dad sat there in tears because, he was worried about the direction I was taking. But he didn't try to convince me not to take that direction, which I think was important. It was a step that I needed to take. I needed to get away. I needed to make my own choice to do it. My dad let me do it. Here's what happened. I started working as a Pizza Hut waiter in Kingston. I was living with 3 crazy engineering students that were my former camp counselors. I was honest. It was amazing. They invited me to all the Queen's University parties. I was having the time of my life. I was 17 years old. I was partying with university students. Couldn't get any better. They were charging me $60 a month in rent. That's all I had to pay. It was incredible. So I worked as a Pizza Hut waiter, and I had so much disposable income because $60 a month. So I was like, wow, this is great. What a great life I have. 4 months into that, I called up my dad, and I went, Dad, I think I need to come home. And he said, oh, yeah, so not as fun as you thought it would be, right? I said, no, are you crazy? I had an amazing time. This is the best time I've ever had in my life. I had an incredible time. And I said, that's my concern. I'm having the best time of my life, and it's as a Pizza Hut waiter, Dad. Nothing against Pizza Hut waiters. I just didn't see it as a career path. It wasn't a passion. So my dad brought me back home, picked me up, no questions asked, brought all my stuff back home. And I went back to high school, did 3 courses. That's all they would let me take at the time. I did those 3 courses, and I went back the following year, and I finally graduated, grade 12. It was glorious! I think I was even more impressed with that achievement than my parents were, because each time I went back, it more and more difficult. It was so hard to study again. I'm partying, okay, at Queen's University, and I'm back in the classroom. Oh, God. But I made it through. I went straight from high school to working at my dad's accounting firm. They needed some help on the side, so I was just doing some evenings and weekends, doing some filing things. And I started talking to one of the guys that was part of the computer consulting branch, and we had one of the first computers in our neighborhood. And my brother and I, we jumped on that thing. So I was telling him, this Al Erskine was his name. He's like, oh, you know computers? Because I'm looking for help. I need somebody for the summer to come down. I'm installing this accounting software at a furniture store downtown. I have to train all of the employees. What if I teach you the software and how to... And I'm like, yes. So that's how I got my first job, was in this division. And I would move on to work for my dad for 18 years. And where did TV come in? Well, at one point while I was working for my dad, my stepmother sees an ad in the paper. She knew I loved acting, but I got away from it. I did a little bit of stand-up comedy, but the anxiety came back, up on stage alone, trying to make people laugh. Hey! Was killer. So she sends me a note and says, hey, they're looking for a host of a television show on Rogers Cable Television, the community channel. You'd be great at this. All you have to do is send in a video resume. I'm like, oh, typical me. Like, I don't have a video camera. Like, well, we'll get a video camera. What's the problem? So she called my dad and said, make sure you ask one of your colleagues if they have a video camera. So I taped it. I invited my friend Jamie over, taped myself doing an interview, sent it in. They called me 3 days later. Like, oh, okay, great. Because I had done a lot of independent films, voices for video games. I did free things. I did anything just to get a resume built up. So I went, and they were impressed with my resume. They said, okay, come on in, and we'll do an interview with you. You can do a mock interview with a guest. I did that, and they called me 5 days later. You're one of our top 5 candidates as the new co-host of Daytime Ottawa. Like, okay, so what do I do? We're going to give each of you an hour, the live show, So one of you on Monday, one of you Tuesday, and so on. So I walk in, and I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do? Like, here's your microphone. This is your co-host. And here are the notes for the guests. Okay, that's it? Like, yeah. Okay, go do a show. So I never met this woman before. We do a live television show. It was exhilarating. And the best part was, I thought I'd be an actor. The best part was they were like, no, we just want you to be you. So I just get to be me. Yeah. So I won the competition. It was online voting. Management had the final say. I won the competition. I made $50 a show my first year. I worked 6.5 hours at my dad's accounting firm and 3.5 hours at the television station. Second year, I made $65 a show. Third year, they bumped it up $100 a show. I was like, this is amazing. But every year I said, listen, if there is an opportunity, every year, I should say every week, if there's an opportunity for me to work full-time here, I would like to come and work full-time. I bugged them. 2008, they offered me a full-time job. I took a $20,000 a year pay cut. I just bought my dream home with my ex-wife. We had to sell it and downsize. Maybe that's why she divorced me. No, I'm just kidding. But she did ask for a divorce about 8 months after we downsized. And again, pretty devastated at the time. But honestly, 3 weeks later, I came to the realization that, we were like roommates, right? We were like buddies, watching movies together, eating popcorn. Intimacy wasn't there. So that was a great decision to take on that job because, working those hours was crazy. I was doing charity events. I was doing 2 charity events a week on average. Some weeks I was doing 4 charity events. I did hundreds of them in Ottawa, and I loved the experience. All of a sudden, finding out about my community and how appreciative people were. They're like, oh, thank you so much for coming and spending your time. Like, this is great. You fed me? This is amazing. I played golf today. I'm just doing the dinner. I started doing live auctions. I started professional live auctioneering. People would even offer to pay me. I never accepted any money from any charity. To this day, I haven't accepted a penny from a charity. And it pissed off my dad because he was the accountant. He's like, do you know all the other celebrities are making money, right? And I said, no, but that's just what I want to do, Dad. I don't want to be anyone else. I think there's just a moral compass that I have about this. They're trying to raise funds for something. So during that time when I was at Daytime, I had an amazing, I'm going to go over just for a minute here. I had an amazing encounter. I'm in the green room, and the executive director of the Canadian Incontinence Foundation is coming on the show. And we met all of our guests in. She came on with another guest who had a product for people with incontinence. It was brilliant. My poor mom, when I told her about it, she was, Christ. It was like a mattress cover that just Velcroed off. So you have an accident, you Velcro this sucker off and put on a new one. Can you imagine when I was like, my mom's like, oh God, you gotta pull off the sheets, bring everything downstairs, you gotta put it back on, and you gotta lift the thing, and we still have to invent better sheets, by the way. The fitted sheet thing is a terrible idea. I don't know who invented that. So, Jackie, who's here today, by the way, she comes in, and I just, by chance, I wasn't embarrassed anymore about telling people. I wasn't shouting it from the rooftop. That's all. So I tell Jackie, by the way, this is kind of neat irony. I have incontinence. I've suffered from fecal incontinence my entire life. And she goes, what? Really? Like she's excited about it. I'm like, wow, it's the first time anyone got excited when I said that. Yeah. So she goes, well, have you told people? Yeah. Would you mind sharing it on air, like live on air when we go? I said, yeah, it's about time. Just in that moment, I decided, yeah, you know what? Sure. Again, not embarrassed to tell people that I knew and close to. Sure. So I did, and the reaction and the feedback was unbelievable. I could not believe it. Then I posted on social media a really long note on Facebook describing that I've lived with chronic fecal incontinence my entire life, and I had people send me the most beautiful notes. People calling on behalf of other people or emailing me and saying, my father hasn't left the house in 8 months. 8 months. He won't go to weddings. He won't go to funerals. he won't go to the store because he's embarrassed about his incontinence. And I said, oh my God, I do live TV every day. You can go out and go to a wedding, and you can go to a funeral, and you can go play with your grandkids at the park. You know, I went from doing a live 1-hour show, I don't know what I was thinking, to a live 3-hour show here in Montreal. Today, as a matter of fact, like, finish a guest, I had to sprint to the washroom. It's quite a distance away in order not to have an accident. Knock on wood. There's no wood here. Here we go. I've only had one time on live television in Ottawa, and I've done thousands of hours on live TV. So that's the message I wanted to tell people that are suffering. Listen, if I can do it, and I know it's more common urinary incontinence. If I can do it, you have urinary or fecal, and anybody can live with it. And a really happy life. Like, I swim. I go to people's pools in their backyard, you know. You just have to manage it. You have to have a strategy and manage it. And I'm managing it with toilet paper as a pad, okay? Some of you are managing it differently, I keep telling people. And again, I'm grateful for having incontinence because it's exactly what I've become today. And then I think people that suffer from anything in life, you all of a sudden have an understanding and a connection to people. And the connection is a spiritual one. And as soon as somebody, I guarantee you, if you suffer from something and you start talking to somebody about it, and you just see in their eyes, they look at you and they go, wow, I understand. It's an amazing feeling. And lastly, what I want to leave with is heroes. And I had so many heroes in my life. I could name them all, but there's too many. But many of them don't realize that they're your hero. And it's funny, you go back years and years, you know, in your mind and think of all those people, and then you tell them later on. John Milkey is a guy that used to walk to school with me. And years later, I thanked him, and he went, what? Well, for what? I said, you walked to school with me. You protected me. But I didn't tell him that he was. I didn't ask him to do it. He had no idea he was doing it. So I always tell, if people do wonderful things for you, please tell them that they did a wonderful thing for you. And another beautiful part of life is when you compliment people and you're kind to people. You know, I say to my co-host Laura or my co-host Elias and compliment them on an interview that you should see how shocked they are. Oh, thanks. Like, that's what we've become. A society that when we compliment people, and I'm not talking about superficial things, you know, oh, I love your hair and your makeup, those are great. But when you compliment them about how great they are and what a great job they do, all of a sudden we have a society that goes, well, really? That's sad that it's come to that. So if I leave you with anything, I'm going to leave you with this last note. This is a great quote. And it's been attributed to a lot of people over the years. So we'll just call it anonymous. And the quote is, when you die, people might not remember what you said, what you were wearing. What they will remember is how you made them feel. And that is the truth. And I really hope I made you feel good today. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks very much. If anyone has any questions, I'm an open book, as you can probably tell, so nothing is off limits with me. So if you have any questions, I think we have just a couple of minutes for questions. I did go over a little bit. I apologize.
How do I do this? I do have a question. So, did you ever, right here?
Oh, there you are. Hey.
Did you ever consider diversion, colostomy and everything instead of suffering?
I did consider colostomy. As a matter of fact, I investigated it again just a few years ago. And what they explained to me is that they would have to do so much in that area now. They'd have to remove basically my entire anus. It could affect sexual function. I did have a lot of urinary problems as well growing up. So I had to get a catheter at one time. I had some infections, bladder infections, urinary infections. I had some blood clots. That's why I had to get the catheter. So let's just say this, when they mentioned the words sexual function, the conversation was over right there. I was like, I got enough issues to deal with. Sexual functions will not be one of them. And I say this too, my wife is so wonderful. It's so great to be intimate. You don't understand, like every moment that I have intimacy, it is like the most magical moment. That's another reason why I'm grateful. I always tell my wife, oh my God, I just love being with you, touching you, like just intimacy. I'm not talking sex here. I just loving, touching, cuddling. It's just, I feel like a tingling sensation every time. And so why wouldn't you be grateful for having that feeling every time you touch the person you love? It's like magic to me. It's absolutely magical. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question over here.
I can't see anyway. Just shout. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Derek, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's just amazing and wonderful.
My pleasure.
And I'm just so humbled with how strong you are and your willpower. And what I'm wondering is, and what you didn't mention, if you ever had therapy, like professional help to come to all these great conclusions.
So what I did get at about the age of 16, I had a Lassiter sling done. So they removed a muscle from my thigh and I guess magically turned it into a sphincter muscle. So that's going back 30 years ago that we tried that. And I had a whole bunch of exercises that I had to do. They explained that, obviously my brain would now have to realize that it has a different function. I'm not sure how that was going to work. Anyway, so they did give me a lot of exercise. I used to take some pills, too, to help with the smell. There were these little green pills that I took quite a lot. I should probably go back to looking at some of those. But as far as that's concerned, I did the exercises for about 2 years when I had the Lassiter sling done. And the irony of it was when I flexed the muscle to try to hold things in, it actually shot things out. Kind of worked as a reverse missile, to be honest with you. So that didn't go over very well.
So can I clarify? I think because we're in Canada, maybe therapy means something different.
Okay.
In the United States, we use a lot of psychologists.
I see what you mean. Wow, I took you off track there, didn't I? This guy's over there going, what the hell is he talking about? So, Derek, I think you need to see a therapist now, so stay on. I did see a therapist for a very short period of time. I'm a very stubborn person, and I went to therapy, and it was good. Like, don't get me wrong, I respected the therapist a great deal. I saw a psychologist, as a matter of fact, to try to work through some of these things. And I honestly didn't feel any better. I thought I was managing it well myself, in particular mentally. I mean, people always ask me, so how did you stay mentally strong, or how do you stay positive? I've had people that I've worked with, like, do you ever have a bad day? Like, you're always happy. How is that possible? Well, yeah, I have a bad day, but my philosophy is it's not your bad day. So if I'm having a bad day, I act the exact same way. My bad day is my problem. It's not your problem. So I'll walk into work and be the morning annoying guy. Even if I'm having a bad day, I'm the happy, annoying guy. And I really do believe in the idea of thinking how you want to feel. So, I know there's this secret out there, and so, if you think you're rich and you spend like you're rich, you'll be rich. Well, I don't necessarily believe that. What I do believe is if you act happy and you smile and you have energy, you will feel happy and you will have energy. I think it sounds simple, but it works. It works for me. I've told people, just try it. Honestly, you're having a bad day, just fake it till you make it, kind of idea. Right? A good example is, let's say I've used this before. Let's say we get cut off, right? There's a moment of road rage. This is what we do to ourselves all the time. We get cut off, we honk our horn, we give the person the finger, we're pissed off. That's a 45-second moment. What do we do, though? We go to work, and we go, man, this person cut me off. You're not going to believe this, Bill. This person cut me off, and I was going, and I had the right of way, and then you run into Mary. Mary, Jesus, this guy cut me off, and, I had the right of way. And you, share that story all day. You come home to your wife and go, I got cut off. And, of course, the story gets bigger, right? You've turned it into this thing, and then I was up on the side, and there's flames coming out the back of this guy's car, and I just don't believe in that. 45 seconds, honk your horn, give him the finger, and let it, it's done. It's over. Don't ruin your day. I didn't answer your question at all, did I? No, but I did go see I did get some therapy at one point. Are we good? We're done?
Unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of WOCN Society, Carolyn Watts.
Thank you, Derek, for a truly inspiring story. We're so grateful that you chose to share your story with us and the public. We really appreciate it. And I wish I had a little bit of that energy myself. It's now my pleasure to introduce a good friend and colleague, Ben Pierce, who's the nominating committee chair. He's going to present the oath of office to our new officers.
Thank you, Carolyn. Can you hear me okay? Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is really a pleasure to be here. Like Carolyn said, I'm Ben Pierce. I'm chair of the WOCN nominating committee. And at this time, I would like to acknowledge the 2015-2016 nominating committee members. So when I read your name, please stand so that you can receive recognition. Carol Dye, Lindsay McCrae, Mary McNeil, and Mary Mahoney. Please give them a warm round of applause. And now it is my honor to install your secretary, directors at large, and nominating committee members. As I read your name and the office to which you've been elected, please join me on the stage. Trudy Huey, unfortunately, was unable to join us today due to a recent injury to her arms and shoulders, but on behalf of the WOCN Society, we wish her a very healthy and speedy recovery. Secretary Rose Murphy. Director at Large, Chris Berkey. Director at Large, Trudy Huey, and I already mentioned she will not be able to join us today, unfortunately. On behalf of the WOCN Society, we wish her a very healthy and speedy recovery, though. Nominating Committee, Area 2, Carolyn Crumley. And Nominating Committee, Area Number 4, Deborah Nelson. You have been duly elected to your office in accordance with the bylaws of the WOCN Society. I now have the honor to act as its representative and to induct you to the position to which you have been elected. Please raise your right hand, listen carefully to the question as I read it, and if you agree, indicate by clearly stating the words, "I do." Do you accept the office to which you have been elected And do you promise to carry out your duties to the fullest of your abilities and faithfully and to the best of your ability? By the virtue of the authority granted to me, I now declare you duly installed as official representatives of the WOCN. Please join me in congratulating our new representatives. It looks like this will be a great year for us. And now let's introduce Colleen Drolshagen and Mary Hill.
Thank you, everyone who helped make Around the Hall and 20 Questions networking game a success. Thank you to all the companies that participated, and thank you to those around the hall to meet our globetrotting companies for filling out the Around the Hall and 20 Questions playing cards.
The results are in, and the winner is Hyacinth Lay. Congratulations. You just won a brand new Apple Watch, and we hope you enjoy it. Thanks for playing, and you can pick up your prize at the registration desk. I would now like to take this time to present to you the first look at CAET 2017 conference in London, Ontario. Please enjoy this video. How exciting. Thank you, everyone who helped make this year's joint conference possible. I hope to see you in Ontario. As our joint conference comes to a close today, I would like to remind everyone, oh, that's you, that next year's WOCN will be headed back to the States, to Salt Lake City. Sorry, that was bad prompting. The one thing I would like to say, though, which is really interesting, is CAET chose the logo of the tree because in London, Ontario, it's the forest city. What's fascinating is WOCN did the same.
Yes, we did. Great minds think alike.
Very independently, so that's fantastic.
Let's get a sneak peek of what we can expect in Salt Lake City.
Welcome to Salt Lake. Since 1847, visitors have reveled in our city's ability to surprise, inspire, innovate, accommodate, and entertain. with its rich history of tradition, culture, fun, and more fun, culminating in an experience that warms the heart and fosters tranquility.
Well, I think the video does a really great job of dispelling the myth that it's dry, there's nothing to do, and there's no place to eat. So I think we'll all have a great time in Salt Lake City. I hope to see you all there next year in 2017. And this concludes our joint conference with the CAET and the WOCN Society. Everybody have safe travels. I hope you left with new knowledge, new friends, and great memories. God bless.
So, Salt Lake City. Oh, I'm sorry.
Get it out of your way.
That's okay. What's that? Oh, that's the whole thing. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry. So, Salt Lake City sounds like a great place to get together, and I can't wait to get together with all you guys again. I hope you're all excited as well. It's never too early to start planning ahead. Keep an eye out for more information on the Society's 49th Annual Conference being sent to your emails in the next few months. This concludes the 2016 WOCN Society and CAT Joint Conference. Thank you to everyone who attended. I hope you had a good time, gained some valuable education, and made many memories with us here in Montreal. Safe travels home. Thank you.